going on? Are we live? Okay, and we have Councilwoman Weil-Smith and we have Councilman Chiarello. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started. Please take notice that action will be taken on the following items in the regular council meeting on Tuesday, February 23rd, 2021 in the council chambers, Sparta Township Municipal Building, 65 Main Street, Sparta, New Jersey. The meeting is called to order at 7:30. On behalf of my colleagues and myself, we'd like to welcome everyone that is here in person and also attending on the call. This meeting, as you will have noticed, is a hybrid one, meaning it's held both publicly in person in council chambers as well as virtually via Zoom. It's important to note that the in-person portion of this meeting adheres to all social distancing protocols currently in effect as per the governor. And also regarding the virtual portion, the URL and password are always published in the agenda. We ask that you please practice live meeting etiquette during and throughout the duration of tonight's call. There are two separate sections or several separate sections of the meeting that are open for public comment. Should you wish to comment from your computer or tablet, please use the icon provided to raise your hand, or if you are using your phone, please hit *9. Once you are acknowledged, please speak clearly into your microphone and state your first and last name as well as your full address. Kate, can you please take the roll call?
Councilman Hurst?
Here.
Deputy Mayor Smith?
Here.
Councilwoman Weil-Smith?
Here.
Councilman Chiarello?
I'm here.
Mayor Quinn?
I am here. Adequate notice of the meeting was provided to the public and the press on January 6, 2021 by delivering to the press and posting on the township website a copy of this notice. At this time, please join me for a salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'm very excited tonight to say that we have with us this evening David Costa of our library, and I am so proud to be reading a proclamation tonight to celebrate Library Appreciation Month. So I'm going to read it from here, if that's okay with you, David, and then I will come down and present it to you, and if you want to say a few words, that would be great. Okay? Whereas the Township of Sparta wishes to recognize the month of February for the acknowledgement of the contributions of the Sparta Public Library, its trustees, the library director, and staff, as well as all libraries and staff throughout Sussex County and the state of New Jersey. And whereas the Sparta Public Library was established as an association library in 1938 and then as a municipal library in 1960, which was located in the original municipal building, and it served as a vital institution of learning and discovery for residents of the municipality as well as visitors over the years, and serves as one of the cornerstones of this community, contributing to its betterment. And whereas the Sparta Public Library and its staff play a key role in helping people explore, imagine, and discover new horizons in the vast, ever-expanding world of information, knowledge, entertainment, and technology, enriching their lives and those of their families. And whereas the Sparta Public Library and today's libraries as a whole are more diversified in the services offered to the public, providing not just hard copy books anymore, periodicals and magazines, but also movies, videos, internet and computer access, 3D printing, multimedia content, and virtual programs, which particularly during the pandemic have offered both mental and physical wellness opportunities for patrons at a time when they are most in need of them. Whereas the Sparta Public Library continues to serve as a center of learning for the community, providing affordable services, bolstering the education, knowledge, growth, social interaction, and understanding throughout the township and beyond, providing a sense of belonging in the community. And whereas the Sparta Public Library, as well as libraries throughout our country, bring together diverse populations and are a resource for all members of the community regardless of race, ethnicity, creed, ability, sexual orientation, gender, identity, or socioeconomic status. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Christine Quinn, Mayor of the Township of Sparta, do hereby proclaim February 2021 as Sparta Library Appreciation Month, and encourage all residents to visit the Sparta Public Library and or its website to explore the wide variety of services and resources it offers to our community. And before I bring this down to you, I also want to say, in addition to every single thing that was mentioned in this proclamation, the library continues to be a friend in the community in so many different ways. You are a go-to center. You guys were the first ones with your hands up when we needed to expand what we had at Town Hall. So you also serve in that capacity. There are so many programs going on. You have an amazing section for the kids and a lot of programming that's offered. So truly, the awards that you have received for the township really affect not just our residents, but we have residents from all around coming, and that's because of the dedication and commitment of yourself and all of the employees that are working there. So on behalf of all of us, my colleagues and myself, I'm going to walk down and go ahead and give this to you, and thank you very much for your dedication.
Congratulations, Dave. It's a great library.
Absolutely.
Wherever you want to do it.
Thank you so much. Thank you for everything that you do for us, and please extend our thanks to you.
I will, and the trustees as well, with their guidance, that we're able to do the things we do, and Dave's been a great liaison, he's been one in the past as well. So, we appreciate all the support that the township gives us every year, and, we work well with you, and we hope to continue to do so in the future, so.
Excellent, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Jenny, in that picture, my eyes are probably going to be fogged over because they all got fogged up in my glasses, but. Excellent, so thank you again for everything, we really appreciate it. Moving on, may I please have a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes held on January 26, 2021 as presented?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, motion carried. I also need a motion for the approval of the regular meeting minutes held on January 26, 2021, and that they be approved as presented. Please.
I will make that motion.
Thank you. May I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
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 Please note, Kate, for the record, that Councilman Hertzberg abstained from that. Okay, at this point in time, we are open to the public for items that are not on tonight's agenda, so anything that is not on the agenda. Mike, do we have hands up from anyone virtually? We do not, okay. I will bring it back to the room. Okay, being as none. Bill?
Hey, so Chris, that just reminds me, because you're referring to the room. Could you tell us who's in the room? I'm sorry, because I don't have a visual of the room.
Absolutely. So we have Ben Wright. We have Dave Costa.
Hi, Ben.
What?
I said hi, Ben.
Oh, hi, Ben. Okay.
Hi, Dave.
We
Okay.
have Jen Derricks. We have Chief Spitaletto. We have Tom Ryan. We have Stan. We have Kate, Josh, myself, Dave, and Mike Dempsey. And Bill.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. So I'll turn it to you, Bill, for the manager's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Start this evening with the storm events. As has been all too familiar lately, the DPW and Parks personnel continue to deal with multiple storm events over the past 2 weeks, and additional snow as well as ice that resulted from these storms. We had storm events that required plowing and salting operations on the 11th, 15th, 18th, and 22nd that produced additional accumulations in our area. Crews worked throughout these storms to keep the roads open for safe travel. As always, they did an outstanding job handling the extreme conditions associated with these events. We're fortunate there were no major issues with equipment or accidents in the township. During the storm, as the majority of individuals stayed home and off the roadways. This is extremely helpful to our crews in their efforts to keep roads open for travel, and I wanted to thank the general public for helping out in that regard. Municipal offices were closed on the 18th, along with delayed openings for non-essential office personnel on the 16th and 19th. Also, as relates to our storm activity, we have posted messages on social media and issued a Honeywell message tomorrow, reminding residents whose properties are adjacent to fire hydrants to ask their assistance in clearing them for fire safety as may be needed. Again, I want to thank Jim Zepp and his crew for all their efforts with the roadways, along with Chief Spittaletto of the Police Department for their work during the storms for public safety. And last but certainly not least, our fire department and ambulance squad for always being there when the residents need them, particularly during these conditions. On one last note, I would just like to draw attention to the fact that we've been fortunate over these storms with minimal power outages, and I think in large part I want to thank JCP&L for their efforts with the tree clearing work that we've talked about that they've undertaken over the past 7 years that I think have been critical in reducing the volume and the number of outages in the area, and certainly we hope that work will continue. Scammers, just draw everyone's attention to, we've received notices, let residents know from JCP&L about individuals who are posing as company representatives looking to collect bill payments from customers. Notice of this activity has been placed on the police and township Facebook pages. Also, there's a Twitter post up on this as well. Additionally, state police are warning the general public about a series of fraudulent phone calls or spoof calls requesting Social Security numbers from residents. So we just are, making people aware of that. The chief and I wanted to make sure everyone is alert and aware of these potential fraudulent phone calls. SBA Payment Protection Program. The SBA announced it will be accepting applications over the next 2 weeks for businesses with 20 employees or less for the Payment Protection Program. After that period, all businesses can resume applying. This is focused on small businesses. Also, the state DCA announced the moratorium on utility shutoffs is going to end on March 15th. Anyone in need of financial assistance can go to the DCA portal at the state website for information on how to apply and get assistance should they need it. The Town Hall roof project, work is currently on hold as the weather, due to the weather, and until that improves, he cannot resume safely work on the roof. He hopes to begin working again tomorrow, hopefully through Saturday, weather permitting. They did complete the overhang by the police department and provided material to our DPW who replaced it on the VMB sign outside. I want to thank Jim and his staff, particularly Mike McCarrick, for their efforts with that particular task. The Parks Garage at Station Park, Township Parks and DPW personnel located materials on site, including trusses, mobile lifts, and lumber for framing. Weather permitting, they anticipate full crews working on the project over the next several weeks, with completion of the project anticipated by the end of March. Recreation, our Circle of Friends preschool, just a reminder for everyone, registration begins this Thursday, February 25th, for the 21/22 school year. For more information, you can call 973-729-2383. Update on our COVID-19. Township continues to participate in meetings with the state and county. There was a mayor's conference call today at 4 p.m. With updates on the pandemic from the county administrator. I'll leave that to Mayor Quinn to comment on during her remarks. The governor issued Executive Order 220, which enabled parents and guardians to attend practices or competitions for both indoor and outdoor sporting events. Also, Governor Murphy enacted Executive Order 222 on February 18th, extending the state of emergency for an additional 30 days in response to the public health emergency by COVID-19. It now runs through the 18th of March. Full text of both these executive orders are available on the township website at www.spartanj.org. Additionally, yesterday, Governor Murphy signed Executive Order 225, which increases the capacity limits for religious services or celebrations, including wedding ceremonies or funerals, which shall be limited to 50% of the capacity in the room in which it takes place. But regardless of capacity, the room shall never be less than 10 people. The county was to hold COVID-19 testing at 5 West Shore this past Thursday, February 18th, from 10 to 2. However, due to the weather, it was canceled and appointments were moved to the Newton facility. Tentatively, the next date to be held here in Sparta is Thursday, March 11th. The township continues to post information from the governor's office and county on COVID-19 as provided. Additionally, we are posting information from a variety of sources, including the CDC, NJDOH, and American Red Cross, as applicable and timely. Also, we've posted information from the SBA for our local businesses as well. Again, I want to thank our CERT team volunteers for all their efforts in assisting with the county fairgrounds with COVID-19 vaccinations. I'm advised we have approximately 7 to 10 volunteers who are contributing their time to this public safety effort that benefits not just Sparta but all of Sussex County. And I want to thank each of those individuals for all they do. Lastly, is with sadness, I draw attention to the fact that flags around the township are now being flown at half-staff by word of the President in acknowledgement and remembrance of the 500,000 Americans who have now died as relates to the COVID-19 virus. The flags will remain at half-staff from now through Friday, February 26th. As has been my practice during the last several months during the pandemic, I'm now going to turn my report over to Police Chief Noe Spitaletto, who is also our OEM coordinator. Chief Neal.
Thank you, Mr. Close. Thank you, Mayor and Town Council. The COVID report that Mr. Close covered quite a bit on already. We have continued better news since the last report I gave, with the virus trending downward in transmission rate, hospitalizations, and deaths. New infections are down more than 50% from the holiday season. Mr. Close covered the new executive orders that have been put out by the governor as he continues to lessen some of the restrictions that have been enacted. We continue to stress the important safety recommendations and guidance put out by the CDC and the New Jersey Department of Health. Sparta Township Office of Emergency Management continues to correspond with its senior living facilities, all of our schools, and the Sussex County Health Department to address certain aspects involving this pandemic. As Mr. Close mentioned, Sioux Fall will be conducting free COVID testing this Thursday at the Newton VFW from noon to 4 p.m. Then the venue will change up to the Sussex County Fairgrounds on March 4th from 9 to 1, and then eventually back to us here in Sparta at 5 West Shore, March 11th from 10 to 2 p.m. There have been requests from caregivers to vaccinate homebound individuals. The New Jersey Department of Health has advised that both the Moderna and Pfizer vaccines, unfortunately, are not portable. Until this is available and Johnson & Johnson vaccine comes out, there currently are no alternatives to transport these vaccines to these locations. On another note, and maybe the Deputy Mayor will touch on, since he's been quite a bit up at the Sussex County site, the new notification system has been instituted, so as to the need by residents to constantly check, and the need by residents to constantly check the website. It's called Appointment Plus and calendar opening for openings. Residents must pre-register and enter their email address into the system as blocks of openings become available. An email blast will go out to all of registered advising residents of openings and inviting them to schedule appointments. Sparta Township first responders continue to be thankful and for the donations that we continue to receive throughout this pandemic. We are well stocked for our protective gear as we continue through our winter months. Sparta Township OEM continues to stay active as the month of February continues to be active with its inclement weather. Please continue to follow us on the Police and Township Facebook pages, or Township Twitter, PD Instagram, and Township website for current storm-related updates and notifications. That concludes my report, Mayor.
Excellent. Thank you both so much. May I please have a motion to approve both the chief and the township managers, or rather to accept both reports as presented?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Motion carried. Deputy Mayor, may I please have a motion for expenditures?
I'd like to make a motion to approve expenditures in the amount of $5,261,868.50.
May I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? So moved. We are now going to move to the introduction of the ordinance. So Kate, could you please read ordinance 21-02 for introduction?
An ordinance amending Chapter 18, Comprehensive Land Management Code, Section 18-5.3F, Stormwater Control.
Excellent. May I please have a motion to introduce this ordinance, 21-02?
I move that we introduce 21-02.
Excellent.
Before we do so, can somebody just provide a brief explanation of why this is being introduced?
Sure, Councilman. I'm going to have the township engineer just give an overview of the ordinance. This was done in accordance with the changes and adoption of the state law relative to stormwater management as pertains to municipalities. And I'll have Stan walk you through the changes and work that was done by staff, particularly with Jim Zepp, relative to this activity. Stan?
Okay.
Thank you. As you know, stormwater regulation continues to evolve. You should not expect this to be the last version. It will continue. As the federal government and as the state of New Jersey updates their regulations, they in turn require that the municipalities update theirs. And that is because the applications for land development occur at the local level. So when applications are in front of the planning board and zoning board, it is our regulation that applies to those sites and how they develop. This particular revision attempts to capture some loopholes from prior regulation in that in the past there were scenarios where you apply stormwater regulations based on the size of the development. In this particular case, we're dealing with both the size of the development. Now what we're doing is we're also dealing with whether or not the site has regulated motor vehicle traffic on it as well. And then what it does is rather than simply require qualitative and hydraulic control of stormwater, this regulation is now addressing control of suspended solids. So it's a quantitative pressure measure in terms of the quality of stormwater. It also integrates what's known as green infrastructure. Rather than dealing with stormwater in a mechanical or in an engineering manner, the goal is to recharge stormwater on site to allow it to percolate through on-site facilities and to use other green best management practices to achieve the qualitative and the quantitative goals of stormwater management. In a nutshell, that's really what this revision takes care of.
Okay, excellent, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so Molly, you had supported it, and I'm looking for a second, please.
Yes, I have made the motion to introduce 21-02.
Right, and Councilman Hertzberg seconded it. May I please, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Great, so moved. We're now going to move on to the hearing of ordinance 20-01, which was introduced at our last meeting. First and foremost, before we move forward with that, I'd like to open it to the public. Both, we're going to go in person first and then virtually for comment with regard to ordinance 21-01. So I will go to the room first. Any comments from anyone in the room with regard to the hearing? Being as none, Mike, do we have any hands up?
No questions.
And no questions?
Chris.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Is it about 46 Angelo Drive?
No. This is so this, what we have another open session at the end, but okay. This particular open session has to do with the ordinance 21-01, but we'll have time to speak at the end.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Thank you. Any further comments on ordinance 21-01? Being as none, may I please have a motion?
I'm sorry, this is comments from the attendants or from the council?
We have no
because I have a couple of questions.
We have no comments from the attendees. I'm now going to bring it back to council. Deputy Mayor Smith, do you have any questions?
No questions.
Councilman Hertzberg, any questions?
No questions. I would just like to, I don't know if thank you is the right thing, but I think this is the kind of stuff we talk about in the Economic Development Committee all the time, are little changes that can be made that are just common sense that will help the business community and help the taxpayers of Sparta. So, you know, these are the kind of things that we should be doing, and I appreciate that the council is moving on things like this.
Excellent. Thank you. Councilwoman Wildsmith, questions?
I don't have any questions, but I also don't mind hearing Councilman Chiarella's questions.
Yep, I'm going through everybody. He's my last one. Councilman Chiarella, questions?
Yes, I have a few. I did go line by line through the current ordinance and the new proposed changes. So my understanding, so to start in the ED zone, it looks like we're adding transshipment facilities, warehouses, and wholesale distribution centers as an allowed business in that zone. It was hard to hear in the last meeting. I believe there was a question from the floor asking a similar question I asked about the prior ordinance. What was the purpose of the introduction? And I believe that the engineer said that there are, and I could be wrong, so please correct me if I am, that there are businesses that are operating in the zone currently that are not operating within compliance of what's in the zone, and so this change will bring that into compliance?
No. I'm going to...
First of all, did I get that correct?
No.
No, that's not accurate.
Okay.
No.
So what was stated in the last meeting? It was hard for me to hear.
It was asked... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
So at this point, I think I would have the township engineer. I think we also have the planning board attorney on, both of whom could answer questions relative to this matter. So Stan, Tom, I'm going to defer to you two.
Quick answer to the question posed. No, that's...
I'm sorry, could you get a little bit closer to the microphone? Again, it's hard to hear you.
Okay. Quick answer to your question, or an answer to your question. No, that's not what was indicated at last council meeting. This is not to bring other enterprises into conformance. I'm not really sure where that reference comes from. I don't know what that means.
Okay, I'm sorry. I apologize, then. I apologize for saying that. It was just my misunderstanding. So back at the hand, so we're adding these as allowable centers, and I think that scale matters here, right? So there's no statement as to the scope of this. So does adding a warehouse to this area add, 2 trucks a day or 200 trucks a day? Is the scale addressed here at all?
So just to clarify, you indicated that center for adding centers. I'm not sure what centers are. This is an ordinance, part of the comprehensive land use code. So what this does is this describes the standards that developers must comply with when applying for site plan approval.
Okay, but under the allowed uses, it specifically says, which wasn't there before, transshipment facilities, warehouses, and wholesale distribution centers, right?
Again, the reference to that particular use is directly correlating to the intent of why we're doing this. We're looking at properties that are immediately adjacent to the existing rail line, and we're simply recognizing that those properties are in a unique position to take advantage of using rail shipment. So since that had not been affirmed previously as an appropriate use, it seems logical here to simply acknowledge the reason why we're making this change is to look at those properties immediately adjacent to the rail line and to recognize the potential that they may want to use those rail lines in their operation.
Right, so to add warehouses and distribution centers to those rail lines. So I guess my point is, again, so the scale of the operation is not addressed in this ordinance, right? This is just because, again, adding a warehouse attached to a rail line could add 2 trucks a day on Route 15, which goes to one lane right around there, or could add 200 trucks a day to Route 15.
All of the land use ordinances within the comprehensive land use code is by definition a scalable ordinance. It has both standards. So what it does is it speaks to the property itself and has various quantitative requirements that would scale the operation relative to the site. So that's exactly what land use ordinances do by definition. They are scaling ordinances. As to the number of trucks, that has everything to do with what the proposed operation is, and the land use ordinance doesn't regulate traffic. Traffic becomes an issue of each application. And if a traffic study is conducted, which I would think it would be logical in most of these, it would be through that study and through the particulars of that application that traffic would be dealt with.
Okay, I understand.
Okay?
Right, so another question I had was that added in both zones, I believe, was a relaxation of the impervious coverage for, I guess, land along the rail line from 40% to 65%. So what is the reason for expanding expanding this to 65%, or the science for that is why does rail shipment need a carve out for the impervious coverage limit?
So impervious coverage is building coverage, it's a driveway, parking lot, things like that, sidewalks, concrete, etc. The concept behind the rail use is that we would like to see the intensity of rail use immediately adjacent to the rail line. We are not looking for that intensity to extend further beyond. In fact, the planning board in its deliberation of this particular ordinance tightened up rather substantially what they considered areas or properties that could take advantage of this. This provision is not available to every property within the EV zone. It is only available to very limited properties immediately adjacent to the rail line of a specific size, certain size, that can accommodate this particular type of operation. So the requirement to manage stormwater doesn't change. 100% of stormwater must be managed on site. There is a qualitative and a quantitative standard that needs to be met. It's simply a recognition that we want to shift the intensity of use adjacent to the rail line and not allow that intensity to move away from the rail line.
So someone couldn't have adjacent lots, one of those lots being along the rail line, deed them together and have a rail line, the entire lot would kiss the rail line at one point and then now have that relaxed impervious coverage limit to 65%. That would not be permitted here?
The properties that are adjacent to the rail line, if the proposed building infrastructure is to be developed within 500 feet of the rail line. So in other words, we're really limiting the number of properties, number one, and number two, we're limiting how the property can be developed in that context. By keeping a short distance between the rail spur, or the rail line I should say, and the operation, be it warehousing or otherwise. And we want to intensify the use at that location, but we are preventing the sprawl of this use at any further distance throughout the zone.
Okay, so if somebody owned two lots, a small lot next to the rail line, a big lot that's contiguous with that small lot, but not adjacent to the rail line, that person could not deed those two lots together and say, aha, I have an adjacent lot next to the rail line. I can now widen the impervious coverage limit to 65% across my entire parcel.
So if there are two parcels adjacent to the rail site.
No, but we deeded them together as one parcel now.
Well, if there is, okay, so if there is one parcel adjacent to the rail site, however that parcel is created, that parcel needs to satisfy the bulk standards in order to qualify. And then if it does qualify, the development on that lot must further comply with the standards set forth in this ordinance.
Okay, so it sounds like the answer is yes, that the whole 65% would apply to the entire lot, but that does not preclude that developer from having the appropriate water capture systems for this 100-year storm.
Every development has to comply with the stormwater requirements, yes. There's no question about it. There's no exclusion.
Okay. All right, I think those are all my questions. So, so again, just to summarize, my concerns for this are two. Like, one is that, there's three ways in and out of Sussex County. There's 206 in the south, 23 in the north, 15 in the middle. And if you want to live in Sussex County and you want to commute to work, you're forced down these three lanes pretty much. And this is where 15 commutes are really bad as it is. And now we're right at where it goes down to one lane. We're opening up opportunities for warehousing, distribution centers, transshipment facilities, and I'm concerned at what impact that would have to the traffic. And I know it's a state road, so at one point we could just say, well, it's a state road, it's not our property. But so that's one concern I have for the quality of life of the people that have to contend with that 5-10 years down the road. And the second concern I had, as I was alluding to, was that this is sort of a further erosion of the Highland planning area protections. First in that same area we added the large retail complex and a couple hundred housing units and paved the whole thing over and on top of the Germany Flats aquifer and then put the sewer utility on top of that, and now we're further expanding this all within this Highlands planning zone, and I'm concerned about the further erosions of the protections it's supposed to afford. So I guess those are my comments. So thank you, Stan, for helping.
Okay, I do not have any further questions. As I am a member of the planning board, I was involved with all of these discussions, so I'm well aware of what's going on. So I do not have any further questions.
Can I just say one more thing?
Absolutely.
Because it's frustrating that people sit up in Trenton and look down at a map and slap the Highlands Act down, don't even come down and look at Sparta and say, well, it makes sense to have business development here, but this doesn't make sense, and this isn't an appropriate place, but this is that's not what happens. They look at a map, they slap it down, and they call it a day. We're left having to do the best we can with what we have left, and that's exactly what we're trying to do, to give some of the taxpayers some tax relief through these business developments. So, it puts us in a position where we have to do the best we can with what we have, and I think this does just that.
Well, if I can make one more comment on top of that, you talked about tax relief. We were faced with that last year when, this North Village went online, and that added a significant increase to our rateable base. And what happened was, our 2020 budget didn't reduce our budget. In fact, we increased spending by $2.6 million, I think it was, over the previous year. So, it didn't provide tax relief. We spent the money. So, could it happen again? I don't know. But,
Well, Councilman, just as a
it's
clarification.
not automatic.
So, Councilman, just as a clarification of that, because you've mentioned that several times, let me reiterate. You had a zero tax rate increase. You always seem to leave that part of that out whenever that's referenced.
Oh, yeah, it's a 0% increase, but if Councilman Hertzberg's point was that we're increasing our tax base so that we can lower our taxes, that hasn't borne out. As my, we had leveled our tax as a percentage-wise, but we increased our spending.
I know math can be confusing, but sometimes when you're trying to make upgrades the township hasn't done in a long time, you're playing catch-up from decades of being broke, that makes sense because it's an investment in the future of the township. So yes, sometimes by spending that money, you're not going to leverage the taxpayers in the future. You're not borrowing to fix things. You're not borrowing to do the things you need to do, like the majority of our state. Our state's a train wreck financially because all we do is borrow, borrow, borrow. Sparta doesn't do that because we're in a good financial position, and we continue to do that through things like this.
So with that said, if there are no further comments, I would like a motion to adopt ordinance 21-01.
I believe the motion is on the floor. I'll second it.
Excellent. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
I will vote no.
Opposed?
I will vote no.
Okay, please let the record reflect. Councilman Chiavello is voting to oppose. Okay. Motion carried. Thank you, everyone. Next up is resolutions. So may I please have a resolution to approve, a motion to approve resolutions 9-1 through 9-4 inclusive.
So
I'm sorry, before we do that, can we carve? I'm sorry, go ahead, Molly.
I actually was going to ask if we could have a little bit of discussion regarding 9-1.
Okay.
I don't know if you want to carve it out or if you want to just do that first and then maybe leave it in.
So
and it really kind of depend on.
Okay, so let's do it like this. I would like a motion to approve resolutions 9-2 through 9-4 as presented.
I move to adopt resolutions 9-2 through 9-4.
May I have a second?
I'll second it.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Abstained? Okay, we'll come back to resolution 9-1. Councilwoman Wildsmith, you had some comment on that?
Yeah, I just really have a question. I really appreciate CP engineers are consummate professionals. Their work is excellent. They've totally given us fantastic advice in the past, but I'm just wondering now, if it's time for an analysis to look at that expenditure versus a full-time Sparta planner. So it's just a question, so I'm asking that of my council colleagues and also the manager, if you think it's prudent to do like an analysis to compare whether or not, and Stan, your work is amazing. I'm just wondering if we're at that point where you definitely got us out of a pinch when we had an engineer leave and we in the middle of so many projects, and it seems like we do have a lot of projects going on now, so I'm just asking, what do you guys think?
So I will, we'll go through everyone again. I'll call on everyone for comment. So we'll start with Councilman Hertzberg. Any comments with regards to that?
I mean, I've only been here for a couple weeks now, but I think Stan's work has been phenomenal, actually. And
It is. That's not in question.
so I think we can have a discussion about that, but I don't think that precludes us from moving forward right now.
Deputy Mayor Smith?
Yeah, I understand Molly's question. I think from what I've understood with Stan's firm, we have access to several different avenues of engineers for one price, as opposed to if we bring an engineer in, we may have to still farm out quite a bit of different areas. So I do think that one advantage we do have with Stan is the broad spectrum of engineering abilities and knowledge from Stan's firm. So that's the way I feel about it anyway.
Councilman Chiarello?
I agree that I would like to do a little bit more analysis before we move ahead with 9-1, but I'd make a comment. So we had a full-time engineer on our staff for I believe many years, and then the CP engineers filled in the pinch when we needed them, and they did. As I echo with everybody, Stan is a great guy, does fantastic work. But I want to know what changed between then and now that we no longer have need for a full-time engineer. Do we not have enough work for a full-time engineer anymore? Or what's changed, I guess, is the question.
So I'm gonna just speak to what I see on the planning board, as well as you all know. One of the things about the way that business is done right now, and the way that things are happening right now, Sparta did have a planner at one point. We have Tom on the phone and Stan in the room, and I'm sure that you will both agree that there is limited space available anymore for actual planning. We have been using on the planning board a professional service as well, because we do not need in the past we were paying a lot of money for someone to come to every single meeting, be at every single thing, and really honestly that was not necessary. So we moved forward and said, you know what, we asked the manager to put together a professional service that brought back to the planning board and was agreed to, so that when we have a need, we go to the service provider. And I think the other thing here as well, with regard to the engineer, yes, we had a full-time engineer, and even at that time, we were still in need of additional engineering services from external, because the specialization of the different projects that we had going on required engineers that were qualified differently. So I will just reiterate Deputy Mayor Smith's point in that the beauty here is we have an agreement in place which is very cost effective, that affords us the ability to pull on different expertise the second that we need it. And I think, in my opinion, being on both, seeing this and also being on the board, in my opinion, this is the path forward. It's no different than how other businesses and municipalities are handling other services also. So in my opinion, I am behind 9-1. I think we had a conversation several weeks back about the cost. That question was asked, I believe, by Councilman Chiarello and answered, so satisfactorily. And I think we seem to be of the opinion, or I am of the opinion, I will say, of talking for myself, that it is money well spent to be able to have access to diverse knowledge.
So I do think that's awesome to have the access to diverse knowledge. I totally agree with that. I'm just asking now if it's prudent to kind of do a comparison. I know we are trying to save the taxpayer dollars, and I'm kind of looking at the expenditures and wondering, we definitely need a consultant. but could we also have a full-time engineer, and would having the combination actually be less expensive? So that's why I'm wondering if we should do kind of an analysis, and how would it be difficult to just even table this particular resolution for a month while we look at that, and then go into it wholeheartedly with, a complete understanding? And I do recognize the value of Stan's firm. I completely respect their work. But I do recall a time when we had full-time engineer, full-time planner for these projects, and it just seems like we do have a lot of projects going on. So that's all. I'm just asking a question, and I really value your opinions, so that's where we are.
And again, having a full-time engineer does not preclude us from going out to CP engineering or any other consultant when we need some specialized consulting help.
Well, I think
I'm sure that's happened in the past.
The point of
when we
having
had
a full-time engineer is so that you don't go out. So I do think it's not cost-effective when you're looking at benefit packages, the rate of pay for a professional engineer to sit in a municipality, and this is what we were facing before, right? So when we got into different types of projects, whether it be redirecting things with stormwater, redirecting piping, and all the different projects that we worked on, to putting in a turf field, to, it was such a variety that what we did end up doing was actually spending more money, because we did have the need to get other engineers involved, even though we did have a full-time engineer here. And again, it's through no fault of anyone's, because it's very hard to be, well-versed in everything. So I think that the question on the table is, would we be able to do a comparison of this before we actually approve this? I'm just saying
That's correct.
That is
That's
what's on the table right now. So,
I look at this and I see that the proposed agreement between Township of Sparta and CP Engineers shall be paid for its services at the rate of $1,000 per month, not to exceed $1,500. Please find me a full-time engineer where we have to contract out, where we can get a full-time engineer for $1,000 a month.
And listen, I'm not saying that we can't do that due diligence, but we do this, and then we do that, and we look to that in the future, not the night that the resolution is on the agenda.
and I have to say, I'm in
Okay, so I would like to understand regarding the agreement, is it a month-to-month agreement, or is it an agreement for the next year? Because I am looking at the bill list, not just the resolution.
the resolution itself. So if we go to the resolution, 9-1, it says, Township, for the compensation for professional services to be rendered may exceed the maximum permissible amounts. I mean, do you have this in front of you, Molly? So
I do.
So it says, if you go to 1, 2, 3, 4, the fourth paragraph, it talks how it's going to be. So whereas the proposed agreement between the Township of Sparta and CP Engineers provides shall be paid for its services at the rate of $1,000 per month, not to exceed $1,500 per month, as per the scope of the work described. And if there is additional or work that's happening outside of that, we will be billed on an hourly basis.
So it's open-ended, is what that says.
Okay, so that's fine. I don't have a problem with that resolution. Again, I'm asking,
Yep.
like the term of the agreement, but also I'd like you to refer to the bill list and look at the expenditure.
Right. We just approved that expenditure.
I know we did, because the work has been done, and why wouldn't we?
Exactly. So if I'm listening.
So all I'm asking is that we table this resolution, and we a little comparison and analysis, and determine, the question is, should we do an analysis?
So I don't think
If you
anyone
think,
is, yeah, I don't
if you
think
think
anyone.
the answer is no, then, go ahead and carve out that resolution and,
I don't think that anyone is saying,
Yeah.
if I'm listening correctly, and if I'm not, please correct me. No one is saying that we couldn't do that evaluation. What I'm hearing is from people here anyway, that we should move forward with approving this and then do an evaluation
And
so
then
that
have
we
that
have this
discussion.
in place, because we do need these services now. That evaluation is gonna take a little while to be done, and it would have been,
I think
probably more
I really don't
appropriate
think
to
that
have
should
this
take very long.
conversation when it was originally asked
That's why
what
I'm
the dollar
asking the
amount
term of
was,
the
rather
agreement. The
than coming
resolution
here.
is only to, sign the agreement for $1,000 to $1,500 a month, and that's not the amount of money that I'm referencing. So,
Well, if there's no more discussion, I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Well, so just to be clear, it was referenced that we did bring this up before, and we did, what I'd asked for was, can I have a total list of the charges for the engineering firm, and I was given a number. I want to say it was about, it doesn't matter what it was. It was a number about 60,000. I don't even recall exactly the number. But then I was given with a caveat that number did not include anything that we bonded for. So that again was not a definitive number. It was an open-ended number of things we paid for plus things we bonded for in cash. So I would agree with Councilman Wildsmith that we just didn't get the last 2 weeks of bills. With 46,000 this period, I think 41 the prior period. I think it's well worth a study before we move forward with this to see a comparison of what would a full-time person going out for consulting every now and then as opposed to full-time consultant. Again, looking at with the taxpayer in mind, what's the best way to approach this?
So, Deputy Mayor.
So I'd like to table this to, until we have that study.
So if there's no further discussion, I don't know, does anyone have any further discussion?
No, if there's no more discussion, I'd like to make a motion to approve Resolution 9-1 as written.
I'll second.
I would like to make a motion to table Resolution 9-1.
I will second the motion to table it.
I'm sorry, the motion on the floor was made by Deputy Mayor Smith to approve, and it has a second from Councilman
Well,
Hurst.
in between the motion and the second, I made the motion to table Resolution 9-1. So maybe Mr. Ryan could advise how to proceed.
I think that we had a motion, we had a second for the motion.
I'm sorry, I can't hear Mr. Ryan.
We had a motion and a second of the motion to approve.
Well, I believe I was making a motion before the second was stated.
Well, we already had a motion on the floor, I think is what he's saying.
Yeah, I believe you can make another motion after a motion on a different subject.
Well, if we don't get a
I might be wrong.
first-
That's why I'm asking Mr. Ryan's counsel.
But with the first motion having been made, it presents the opportunity to second that motion, and it has been seconded.
Okay. Thank you.
So, at this point, then, we are looking for a vote, and we'll do a roll call vote here. So right now,
Can we be clear what we're voting on? Which motion are we voting on?
to approve Deputy Mayor Smith.
Resolution 9-1.
Right.
Can we have a roll call?
So that's what we're going to do now. That's what I
Councilman
just
Hurst-
asked for.
Councilman Hertzberg,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Smith,
Yes.
Councilman Chiarello,
No.
Councilwoman Wildsmith,
No.
Mayor Quinn.
I am voting yes, with the caveat that we can do a follow-up at a later time. We could do a caveat to this and compare the costs, but for right now, this contract needs to, in my opinion, be approved so we can move on. So, motion carried. And we will do that review. Council liaison updates. We will start with Councilman Chiarello.
I have no updates from the Environmental Commission, the Cultural Affairs Committee, or the Technology Committee.
Okay. Did you guys have a chance yet to set your dates for the Technology Committee?
I have heard nothing arranged now.
Okay. Councilwoman Wildsmith, any liaison updates?
No, I do not have any. Thank you.
Okay. Councilman Hertzberg,
None at this time.
liaison updates? Deputy Mayor Smith?
The only thing is, again, like the manager and the chief said, with the CERT team, after after this week, they'll have put in, our Sparta team will have put in over 700 hours now at this point. It's going strong. We had a couple snow days last week up there. They have since been made up, as far as I know. And there is a new way to get your appointments. I just recommend everybody go to sussex.nj.us. It's constantly changing. The protocols, it gets tweaked all the time. So I recommend you go there to find out how to get your appointments. Also, you go to that site if you'd like to volunteer. Just type in the search MRC, and you'll come right up to the Medical Reserve Corps. You can fill out an application there. We do need help. Yesterday, they put a cry out for help. We only had 12 volunteers there. Granted, it was a little snowy, but we did hold full. We actually did 250 vaccinations yesterday in the snow. We do need help. Please, if you can volunteer, MRC. You do not have to have any medical background. The library did not meet this month. They will be meeting next month. The seniors did have a meeting this month. Nothing of substantial at this point to report, Mayor.
Thank you so much. Liaison reports from my side. The Rec Advisory Committee did meet, and just a quick update there. The Bunny Breakfast will be on March 20th. We're very excited about that. And we're also very excited about our new community snow sculpture contest, which is something new, staying in line with the home decorating contest that we had. This idea was originally, kind of conceived through a brainstorming effort with the residents, so we're always excited. And Jean and Allison are just doing a phenomenal job, as well as the rest of the rec staff, the recreation staff, of bringing these programs to light and really doing great stuff. With regard to the health department, both Deputy Mayor and myself are now members of the New Jersey Local Board of Health Association, so I just want to make the council aware of that. We did have a call with Steve Levinson and the manager and chief, so we're having these calls quite frequently now to really stay on top of what's going on. In addition to that, the manager referenced a call today, the mayor's conference call today, just some things to share with everybody from that call. As the chief mentioned, the curve is trending downward, so we're very thankful for that. As Deputy Mayor mentioned before, it really is quite amazing what's going on at the fairground with all the vaccinations up there. The protocols, what they told us today, are not changing for the foreseeable future when it comes to this. And as always, any senior without a computer or internet access can call Senior Services at 973-579-0555 if they need help to be able to get an appointment. With regard to the Board of Education, their meeting is Thursday, and also just want to zero in, as I've mentioned before and done updates on, I am a member of the C3 Workforce Committee, which is quite an amazing organization of different stakeholders, parents, staff members from the schools. It's quite amazing, a lot of the things that are coming out of there. And I did want to really just give them a shout out and everything in lieu of everything going on for the work that's been going on, which is really quite amazing. There's a lot of information that is out about the committee. I know there have been, you guys probably have seen some of the articles, so you're aware of some of the things going on, but the C3 committee is actually so much bigger than some of the things that we've seen noticed. So I encourage you, if you are not familiar with it, you can see information from the website. Really the area of focus here is tremendous, and I will say that throughout this entire COVID epidemic, we are very lucky to have the dedication of the staff members and the parents and that really stayed with this the whole time and never backed off and kept going. We're talking about the mental and physical health, well-being, everything from inclusion and everything, the mental health of the kids, the whole culture and environment, everything. So I did just want to point that out. So that is it for the liaison reports. I'd like to move on now to old business. I will start with Councilman Chiarella. Do you have old business at this time?
Yes, two things. So one, I am meeting with the town manager, with the representative from SCUMA about food waste recycling. So I want to thank the town manager for arranging that. I think there's good things that could come out of that meeting. And secondly, I would like an update, if we could, on a discussion from, I think, 2 meetings ago when we brought up the issue with I think it's NJ Shopper. It's the newspapers that were being distributed around the town, I believe, on Friday or Saturday. We talked about, what we can, what the impact of that is, what could be done at the town level. And I think, I don't know if the town manager or the town council would have an update for us.
Sure, Councilman, I will be glad to answer that. First off, the township attorney has rendered an opinion today relative to enforcement actions that could be taken with respect to violation of littering within the community. The chief of police has staff contacting the party in question to review the situation in an effort to resolve it without having to get to that point. And then in the process of doing that, they were started today. So unless the chief has an update from that, that's where we are as of today. And Tom or Neil could feel free to answer if they'd like to chip in as well.
Yeah, no, the only thing I would say to echo the manager's comments is that we do have an ordinance on the books that regulates the distribution of such items, such as newspapers and posting of bills, and it must be done in a way that the items distributed are secure on a property so that they don't blow around or end up in the streets. So indeed, if the township finds that that's not being complied with, then we can take enforcement actions, and I believe that's what the chief is reviewing.
Yep, but we'll make contact with the publication, and we'll let them know that information. I would think they will comply with what they have to do.
Yeah, Dan, if you check your council email, you'll see a copy of the resolution right in there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thanks. And thank you to all three of you. And I'm glad we're taking a step up, just getting a dialogue. I'm not trying to call out the Herald or whoever is responsible there. I believe in local journalism, and I think they're just doing what they feel we need to do, and we just need to make it better. So thank you all. And no other old business for me. Thank you.
Okay, Councilwoman Wildsmith, old business.
None for me, thank you.
Okay, Councilman Hertzberg, old business.
I have none.
I have none.
No, and I have none either. Shocking, I know, but I don't have old business. Moving on to new business, I will start with Councilwoman Wildsmith. Any new business for tonight?
No, I'm good, thank you.
Councilman Chiarello, new business?
Yes, just one thing. I want to draw attention to a concern I have with something going on in the northern part of the county. There's an application from the Tennessee Gas Pipeline to construct a new compressor station up in the northern part of Sussex County, and that construction will greatly increase the volume of natural gas that's being forced through rather aging pipelines throughout the Highlands Preservation Area in Sussex County. I know this doesn't directly impact Sparta, but as we talked about earlier, the Highlands does run through parts of Sparta, and this does impact the Highlands area. Wantage Township recently did pass an ordinance opposing this project, and it's my understanding that there's a group that is trying to get other municipalities in the county to support Wantage and pass a similar proposal. And if something would come across our council, I would be in favor of such a resolution. And that's the only new business I have.
Thank you. Councilman Hertzberg, new business?
No, I would just like to note and thank our Sparta BOE, the district, for putting that plan in place to get the kids back in school. I think it's much needed, and I know it was a lot of work for them to put all the pieces together to make that happen. So I just want to give them a shout out and thank them for all their work to get these kids back in school.
100%. So I'm just going to go to my colleague, Deputy Mayor Smith, but before I do that, I'm going to wish him a very happy birthday because today is his birthday. So
oh, cool.
See,
So-
there is some old business.
I wasn't going there. I said, I put it in new business specifically. Okay, do you have any new business other than their
No new business.
the new number on of your birth? No?
No new business.
Okay, great. I do have some new business, so also I would like to echo the sentiments of my colleague, Councilman Hertzberg, and really giving a shout out to the Board of Education for putting together this plan. I think that there is an amazing need. I don't think we need to talk too much more about it because we all understand it needs to be done in a safe way, and there's a lot of moving parts associated with it that take a lot of time and dedication to really work through. So on behalf of all of us, I echo your sentiment as well. I also want to share a great letter that the DPW received from a family in town, the Ericksons, thanking them so much with regard and giving them a lot of great feedback here on the plowing efforts. And I do want to reiterate again, our DPW has been working tirelessly, and they really are to be commended for doing an amazing job. So I wanted to make sure that I brought that letter forward. And finally, in my new business this evening, and I apologize to those of you that are on the phone because you're not going to be able to see this, but I'm going to just take 1 minute because I was so struck by this article, and I want to share some information around it. Last week, it was probably, 2 o'clock in the morning, and I checked my email, and I saw an article that the Patch had published with regard to a small girl who's 8 years old who, in the middle of a virtual session at school, became fidgety. The teacher asked her to please sort of settle down, at which point this little 8-year-old girl burst into tears and ended up saying in front of an entire Zoom class of her peers that she was starving. She hadn't eaten. She was so hungry. You can read the article. I have chills when I'm sitting here talking about it. And I was just absolutely struck. And I think one of the main reasons why I want to bring this up here tonight, right after I read this, that next morning I started making phone calls. Because quite frankly, I said this 9 years ago when I came here. We've said this many times since. I've said it many times since. You know what? Unfortunately, we cannot tell people that we do not face the exact same issues that every single municipality in the state of New Jersey has. We can't say that. What we can do is say that we're different in the way that we handle it and the way that we react to these things. We need to be mindful that Monmouth County is not the only county that has probably an 8-year-old child that is the result of parents losing jobs through COVID who can't afford to put food on the table, who might be feeling really overwhelmed with nowhere to go. And I reached out immediately. This was Friday night that I read this, I believe it was. Saturday morning I was on the phone, and I have to be honest with you, we have a huge support system through food pantries and whatnot, but really one that's very notable, and I would like this information to go out there so that it is someplace. So Bill, I would ask, or Mike, maybe Bill and Mike, I know we have the self-help page. I really would like to highlight this information I'm about to share about Project Self-Sufficiency. I had a conversation with someone in the leadership there back in December, and the numbers that they gave me were just mind-blowing. And it's a reminder that these are the situations that we have here. So when it comes to specific information about Project Self-Sufficiency, this is since March of 2020, so a year. 135,188 meals for 10,012 individuals from the food pantry. 600 plus new coats for infants through adults. 3,636 calls for intake for emergency assistance, whether it be utility bills, housing. 400 plus Thanksgiving meal kits. This is in our county, folks. This is right here. 2,500 gifts for children at the toy shop, 76 gifts for senior citizens in need, 31,000 diapers for families in need. If we have to be mindful and look around us. We are Spartans. What makes us different is always how we come together in these things. We need to be mindful. A lot of these kids we might have neighbors, but a lot of these children where these issues would come up when the kids were in school, they haven't been in school, so no one's been able to intervene. Kids that were getting lunches in the middle of school aren't in school anymore to get those. So I am just asking anyone, first and foremost, look around, be mindful. We are not different. We were hit just the same as everyone else is, so please be mindful. And if you see a neighbor in need, please understand that you can send them, you can direct them directly to Project Self-Sufficiency. They will take anybody that is in need, any family that is in need. You don't have to be a single parent. Any family in need can go to Project Self-Sufficiency and get what they need. Also, if you are talking to friends or whatnot, and you hear of something, please share that information as well. We have to look out for each other. This is what makes us different. This is who we are and what we do as Spartans in this community, and this is why people want to live here. So I just wanted to share that information so that people had a point of reference in understanding that, that this is not something that is just specific to Monmouth County. And with that said, I would like a motion to, we open to the public one more time. So do we have anyone on the phone with a hand up or a question? None? Anyone in the room with a question? We have a...
Not a question. Jenny Derricks, tapping to Sparta, not to belabor the meeting any longer than it needs to, but the FDA has included and extended their free meals for any child under the age of 18. That's been going on for a whole year. It's still going on. I've written about it a couple of times. Mm-hmm. Right now, this is going through the schools through Sodexo. You don't have to be a student in Sparta schools to get it. You just have to live here and be 18 years old or younger.
Great. Thank you, Jenny. So we could put that information also on the website on the self-help. It's very important that we are sharing this information because, unfortunately, as you know, if any of us have been confronted with a catastrophic incident, sometimes it's not so easy to see your way out of it. So it's important that we share the information that we can. Any other public comments? Being as none, may I please have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
We have a second? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? Excellent. Thank you everyone for coming out tonight.